Before you go on, I did want to comment on the last line from this Marx quote here that we get to explore all the different parts of ourselves, our creativity, our intellect, our gentleness, and our ferocity. Doesn't this sound just like the modern ideal that you know, you explore who you are, find out who you truly are? Uh, Really sounds pretty similar to me.
Yeah, it sounds really good. Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah,
Exactly.
and it definitely it sounds good on the surface. I mean, it's hard to object to someone saying that. Yeah, of course you should find out who you are. Of course you should explore yourself. Uh, the quiet part is where you get into trouble. Where what does that mean? Well, that means you get to define your own morals. That means you get to define what's right and wrong. You get to be freed from
Yeah.
all this horrible bounds that religion has put on you, and you get to decide for yourself what you get to
You
do.
know, he was very vague in some of his philosophy. So, for instance, people say, look, he spoke of communism, and communism is the end state, it's the end goal. Socialism is the vehicle to get you to this Garden of Eden of communism. And then he's very vague about, he and Engels are very vague about what exactly, at least originally, he's very vague about what is communism, what will it be? Because that is when the state withers away and you end up in this perfect government, right? The state just runs itself somehow. And people asked him, so what is the end state? How does it happen? How does it come about? He had no idea, had no clue. And he said, it's not for me to write recipes for people of the future. Like, okay, yeah. So, anywho, so in his doctoral thesis, Marx proclaims that in the country of reason, the existence of God cannot have any meaning. He says what? In the country of reason, it is an area in which God's existence ceases. Now, we saw in France, we've seen in the Soviet Union, we've seen in Pol Pot's country, we've seen in Mao's country, where when they removed God, they had slaughter. They quite bluntly had slaughter and chaos, right? And you may notice that secular humanist language very closely resembles Marxism because he was a secular humanist as well. Now, there are three postulates. So this is okay. So there's metaphysical or dialectical materialism, which considers matter as the supreme and unique cause of everything. And man is considered, though, the supreme being, although matter is matter, so but man's the supreme matter, I guess. And everything is deterministic, although, yeah, so in other words, just atoms banging together give you thoughts. There's no soul that animates you.
Mhm.
There's historical materialism because in Marxism, history is the thing that drives progress, right? According to which the economic factor is the principal and decisive factor, and the economic structure is the carrying structure of all other structures. That it just makes my head hurt. And then absolute humanism. Oh my gosh, hey, Marx was a humanist too, which sets man at the summit of the cosmos. Man is the supreme being. That's a little Gnostic. That's a little occultic. And that's what the Nazis believed. It's what the Marxists believe. It's what the fascists believe. It's what the Gnostics believed. So yeah. Anyway, yeah. Your thoughts, that is.
Yeah, I mean, the number two there, this is what we associate with communism, with Marxism, is the end of private property and whatnot. We rarely realize that there are three aspects that go hand in hand. That we 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 don't think that we think of it as just a purely economical uh, principle or proposal
Hmm.
or whatever you want to call it, where in reality it's a complete political system that seeks to control every aspect of your life. That sounds a little familiar.
Yeah. And in his judgment, religion was the thing that suppresses your greatness. Religion suppresses your talent. Religion suppresses your ability. You must remove religion. You must destroy religion. You must destroy the church so that man can become aware of his greatness, his dignity, his godhood. Religion is the thing that is removing it. But these guys, don't forget. Now, I mean, once you go into the stuff, they want you all to wear the same clothes, eat the same food. It's just nuts. The sheer amount of control. Now, Marx, I'm not going to go into depth on this because let's just say he didn't like him some Jews either. Okay, but religion does not constitute the foundation, but the phenomenon of worldly limitation. Okay, uh, we explain the religious subjection of free citizens with their earthly subjection. We affirm that they will suppress their religious limitation as soon as they're suppressed. In other words, once they find reason, religion will just vanish. Once they are socialist, religion will vanish and people will suddenly flourish. Everything will be awesome, right? And religion expresses man's failure to reach his own greatness. In other words, you are held back because of religion. When man achieves his greatness, the religious phenomenon will disappear. So there you go. So that's basically what he's talking about. So, you know, religion is the expression of real misery and a protest against it. Religion is the groan of the oppressed, the sentiment of a heartless world, blah, blah, blah. So understand, he's got a very negative view, and this is exactly, now notice these atheists say exactly the same things. Now what's interesting is, that means they're Marxists. And Marx, he was the progenitor of genocides, of the most totalitarian governments to ever exist. Your thoughts, Thaddeus?
Well, to borrow from earlier, the response here is that Marx is daif, right?
Yeah.
That well, he may have said some things that were correct, but that doesn't mean that other things that he said are also correct, and which I mean is true, but we're actually quoting the exact things that you agree with, and those are his core tenets. So it does seem like you are pretty Marxist. Maybe you don't think that the government should eliminate private property or something. You throw out one principle, but
Yeah.
absolutely, that third principle there of man becoming his own God, we see that this is the dominant position in secular society today. This is the position that's being pushed by
Hmm.
the media, the education system, whatnot. And they don't use those terms. They make it subtle,
But it's
but it
Marxist. I
absolutely is
said
what
they
they're
are
doing.
communism's useful idiots, and they are communism's useful idiots.
Exactly. Yeah,
Now,
exactly. That's a great way of putting it. They might not say they adhere to the doctrines, and they might not think they do, but they are serving the purpose nonetheless.
yeah. Now, this is from, okay, it's from the Roman Catholic Church, guys. So bring out your conspiracy theories and hatred. Knock yourselves out in the comments. But in Christianity, man raised to the dignity of God's Son becomes greater and not smaller, freer and not more enslaved, nobler and not more petty, more serene and not more tormented. The Christian, in fact, is a man who, knowing that he is infinitely loved by God, knows that he has become infinitely great. Right, so this is the newspaper of the Catholic Church. This is from 1978, when the Pope was actually. There was a time when the question, is the Pope Catholic, was just a joke. Now it's actually a very, very serious question. So, okay, we'll start winding down.